Welcome to the City of Plano's virtual WaterWise landscape tour, presented by Live Green in Plano and with your guide, Albert. Today, we're showcasing Dan and Candy Zechmeister's lovely landscape. While they've lived in their home since 1988, it was a driving tour of England in 1995 that inspired their love of flowers and the WaterWise evolution of their yard. Before we take our tour, though, let's get oriented. Located near Bob Woodruff Park, the front of their home faces north. Most of their front yard receives sun, aside from the porch and the beds that curve underneath crepe myrtles. Their west side yard receives primarily shade, thanks to the orientation of the house and the neighbor's fence and trees. A curated sun garden and a summer wildflower garden sit adjacent to their alley. Their backyard oasis receives primarily shade and features a pool. And their east side yard receives a combination of sun and shade. Let's meet the homeowners, shall we?
Hi, I'm Dan Zechmeister.
I'm Candy Zechmeister.
We're not native Texans, but I guess we got here as soon as we could. We're originally from Minnesota and passed through Chicago for about 5 years and moved down here to Plano back in 1988. So we've been in the area for 32 years. And this is the home we bought when we got here, and it's just been evolving as we lived here. So.
We went on a driving vacation through England in about, I think it was 1995. And we just loved all the gardens and the flowers. They were beautiful. We got home, we started planting stuff.
We found out that we had some really messy areas of our yard, and we thought, well, that'd be a good place to start and a good place to transform. So we just kept at it, and the project, I call it a project, I guess it's more of a process. It's a journey, really. The journey never ends because it's always changing. We always try something new, something different, and it gives us a purpose. It
gives you a purpose.
Yeah. I find that I can spend 2 to 3 hours a day, usually in the morning, out here tinkering in the yard, doing something, whether it's planting, transplanting, cutting, trimming, mowing, whatever it is.
And all those years of hard work have certainly paid off. That's clear from the curb. Let's take a look at the front yard. Over the years, Dan and Candy have reduced their turf in favor of beds that feature many beautiful WaterWise plants. One of our absolute favorite sun lovers, lantana, greets you with its many bright blooms right off the bat. These various varieties of lantana are perennial plants, so Dan and Candy have the joy of seeing them return year after year. Lantanas love full sun, but will tolerate partial shade. Plus, pollinators love those colors. But come to find out, Dan has another favorite.
One of the plants that we moved from the side yard and then put it out in the front out here, and then actually it did very well, and we've got it in 3 places now, is a Turk's cap. We happened to find a Turk's cap when we were out on a WaterWise tour. And
2 years ago.
Yeah, 2 years ago, and really thought that was unique, and we wanted to try it, so we brought it home and found out that we liked it because of the bright red flowers that it gets and the dark green leaves, but the hummingbirds just loved it also, and continually all summer long we've got hummingbirds flying into our Turk's caps and
sipping their way from the top to the bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah, they love it.
Turk's cap is a shrubby perennial plant that's easy to grow. Dan and Candy placed it underneath their crepe myrtles alongside Dusty Miller, Liriope, and the pink variety of autumn sage, another one of our absolute favorites. These plants are hardy, low maintenance, and great for wildlife. Speaking of wildlife,
besides the hummingbirds, we get other types of wildlife in here continually. Rabbits. I think everybody's got rabbits
And squirrels.
and squirrels, but we've learned to tolerate each other with the rabbits. As long as they don't eat the flowers, they're welcome to stay. We do have a resident pair of Cooper's hawks that they lived in our yard for a while, and they continually stay around the neighborhood. And we've got, we've seen possums in here. We've seen a raccoon. We do have numerous little frogs, tiny frogs about the size of the end of your thumb, that we can hear peeping in the morning and in the evening. They almost sound like birds. And the other day I found something had been digging back in our herb garden. So I went back there and started taking out the rocks to fill in the hole, and found two big toads about the size of the palm of my hand.
They're huge.
Yeah, that we're happy to have in the yard, so I just relocated them to another part of the yard where they wouldn't cause any damage.
As you approach the west side yard, you're treated to more liriope and autumn sage blooms. Dan divided these stands from the original plants. Meander along the decomposed granite path down the west side yard. This area, once muddy and difficult to manage, now offers a lush, shaded walk to the back of the house and a beautiful antique bench to rest along the way. Holly ferns are growing great here, loving the dappled light. Their shiny, dark green fronds add nice texture. They complement a unique bird bath. Candy tells us more.
This bird bath belonged to one of our neighbors, and it was broken, a big chunk out of it, and it was sitting out in the alley for about 2 weeks. So I asked her if she was throwing it away, and she said yeah, and I said, can I have it? She said sure. So we put it on this little wheelie thing and dragged it back to the house here and just buried the broken part in the ground.
That's a great creative reuse idea. Also located in the shady west side yard is a rain barrel, making hand watering easier.
Catch the rainwater, and I'll use that to spot water various plants during the week, during the hot weeks of the summer.
Here's a look back at the shaded west side yard. As the decomposed granite pathway comes to an end, the alley sun garden comes into view. There's more lantana, and the pollinators are loving it. The alley sun garden features several all-star, drought-tolerant plants. While we filmed our tour in late September, it's worth taking a look back at this area in the heat of August to see them thriving with minimal supplemental watering. Some of those August colors include black-eyed Susans, Texas sage silver cloud, purple coneflower, and lavender cotton, all looking great on a hot summer day. With more sun along the alley, Dan and Candy commissioned their neighbor, an artist, to design a sign to highlight their summer wildflower garden. Arrive in their backyard oasis in style underneath the grapevine, and you'll never want to leave. No matter the season, it's a cozy area for entertaining and for getting plants started off on the right foot, or should I say, root. Dan tells us more about their watering practices, including their micro-irrigation system.
We follow the city's guidelines and water twice a week. If needed, we are very careful to turn it off when there's a good chance of rain. But we're constantly checking our sprinklers to make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to, and not watering sidewalk or street or just a geyser shooting straight in the air. But in certain areas, I've gone through and put in a mini system, a mini watering system, using hoses, so less than as big as round as my little finger. They're smaller than that. But I just have the hoses that run to, like in our herb garden, so rather than just splash water over the patio and everything there, it's just the herbs that get the water.
Because they're in pots.
In pots,
in
right.
Pots, flower pots.
And then the same thing, an area behind our pool that we call the nursery. Anything that's in a pot that's maybe not doing so well on its own somewhere else in the yard, we'll bring back into the nursery. and leave it there. And I also have this mini watering system back there, just so that they get specific amounts of water, and we don't overwater the rest of the yard and into the pool from back there. And I've run that across the whole back of the pool. We've got more ferns back there, and the ferns are on the mini watering system also.
It's a lot easier on our backs too, because then we don't have to do it by hand with a watering can, which is very labor intensive.
Water efficient and easy to manage, a great combination. Speaking of great combinations, we love how they've paired art and wind chimes with their plant palette. Although it's hard to pass up that pool, you'll love walking down the stone path in the east side yard, a project that Dan and Candy are proud of.
We've got a couple of projects that we're really proud of. I mean, how it evolved and came to be. The east side of our house, the yard over there was just a dog run, and it was just part mud, part grass, and that's back when we had dogs who have since passed on. But when they were gone, we decided that we'd like to reclaim that part of the yard. So we moved the fence forward. It was about halfway up the yard, and we moved it up to the front of the house. And then we had a French drain put in that ran the entire length of that yard. And the reason we did that is every time we got rain, the rainwater would just stand in there, and we could never grow anything.
It's kind of like a bog.
Yeah, not pleasant at all. So we had the French drain put in, and that really helped to dry out the area. And then I put in a stone path, field stone, that went all the way through it. And then we decided, well, I don't really want to bring the lawnmower back here. So we got rid of all the grass. And then from there it was deciding which plants we wanted to put in and what we wanted it to look like. And well, we happened to be down at the Arboretum, and we were just enthralled with their fern garden down there with under the trees, and the water runs through this stream, and we thought, wow, wouldn't that be neat? And we came home and looked at our yard and wound up putting in a dry bed.
A dry stream bed.
Yeah, that was about it. Didn't want any more water running through there. But the dry stream bed has become kind of a neat focal point in that part of the yard. And then from there it was just, like I say, it was which plants would work in here and which ones wouldn't.
And if they weren't working, they got moved somewhere else and brought in something else, and it's kind of a try it for a while and see if it works.
That was one thing we found out as we've been doing all this, is that not every plant is going to work where you want it. So we would try all kinds of plants, and those that lived
got to come back.
Yeah, and those that thrived in a certain area, why, we kept them there, and those that didn't, we would move.
Sometimes learning from trial and error is the best way. Patience is key. Here's some advice from Dan and Candy.
Many times when I'm out working in the front yard out here, neighbors who are out walking will stop and we'll chat about their gardens and about our yard, and they'll ask, well, what do you do? You know, how do you get all the flowers and the plants and everything to grow and look so nice? And I tell them that it's just kind of a labor of love, but it's ongoing. We're not successful with every plant we put in, and we're not afraid to try plants everywhere in the yard. And I guess if I was going to advise anything, I would say try plants, and if you like them, if they thrive, then keep them there. If they don't, then find something else. Move on from that. You can transplant those maybe somewhere else. And we found that plants that we're successful with will subdivide. We've got a society garlic that started with a little plant about this big, and we've now got it in 5 different places, and it's growing about this big in each place.
And we're giving some of it away to other people too, because we don't have any more room for them.
What's the best part about their yard? It's a labor of love and a space for peace and clarity.
When I was working, I found out that I needed a stress release, and I would come home and just throw myself into the yard no matter how hot it was outside or how grubby the project, but just to get that mind release. And found out later that I just loved it, and we would then consult and say, well, what should this area look like? And we'd go on from there and do our plantings and our landscaping.
It's also a place where fond memories with grandchildren were made, like this moment forever captured when the yard was a winter wonderland. We'd like to sincerely thank Dan and Candy for sharing their yard, and you, our viewers, for following along. We've referenced many plants and resources throughout our tour, and we invite you to learn more. Visit plano.gov/landscape tour for a corresponding plant list specifically for the Zechmeister's yard. Visit plano.gov/seed programs and click Learn Online to watch our recorded webinars. From your friends at Live Green in Plano, thank you for viewing the virtual WaterWise landscape tour.